Welcome. Welcome back to yet another video. Today we are going to discuss about Spring Boot scheduler. So if you are looking out for a video which explains about what a Spring Boot scheduler is about, how it works, right? What is the practical way to implement it, right? So you are in the right video. So today in this video, I'm going to explain all these things. So whether you are here for learning, whether you are just checking out what can be the easiest way to implement that, this video explains about it. Uh, so the content of this video, basically what we are going to discuss, we already spoke about, like what is scheduler, Spring Boot scheduler, and there are different ways to execute a task. So basically, you have different cron jobs, or basically you have some delay which can be added to the particular task on a certain period time. You can run that, right? So there are different variation. We will discuss about it after we go about the theoretical part. We will discuss and we will explain about how to implement that using the uh, creating a project in the IntelliJ, and then how you can create a class and then you run your own task in a schedule, right? So that's what we'll be looking out. So let's begin. So if you check it out, like what exactly the Spring Boot scheduler, it allow you to run that particular task, okay, whatever task you want to run at a certain interval, or if you have some, you can also run this particular task on a certain cron expression, right? So at a certain interval, it will be executed. So there are basically Spring Boot, right? There is an annotation which is called @schedule, which is used to schedule and execute your task in a background process. So it will run in the background in a like a daemon process, right? So this is an benefit of it. Whether you wanted to send some emails, right, on a periodic. Let's say you want to send some email on a periodic time, right? So let's say at a certain time you want to send an email, right? Or you want to at a certain time you want to clean up some resources of this particular, right? Then you can do that. Or let's say you want to trigger some task at a certain duration. So all these use cases will be applicable, and this scheduler will be a perfect fit for it. So as we already discussed, so the very first thing what we have to do is that when you create a project, right? So there is an annotation which you have to add up, that is an enable scheduling. So this will make that particular Spring Boot aware that you have to uh, this is then configuration which has to be enabled, and typically it has to be added at the main class, that is the Spring Boot, where you have this particular Spring Boot main method, and along with the @Spring Boot application, you have to add this particular enable scheduling. So this will enable your configuration of the main class to run and or enable this particular scheduling in your application, right? Once you do that, the second thing is that schedule annotation. So this is one of the annotation which is has to be applied to the method where you are writing the specific logic or a task which has to be executed, right? So you have to write that particular, you have to annotate that particular method, and then you have to write your own logic in that. So there are different types of scheduling strategies. What we can say is that is one is using the fixed rate, fixed delay, cron jobs, and then there is an initial delay as well. But yeah, we'll discuss all about this. So what does it mean when you say fixed rate, right? So it is going to execute at a certain fixed interval. Okay. So let's say you have a specific task which has to be executed at the start of this particular milliseconds, right? You can do that. Okay. So this is the fixed interval which will be executed. Now you wanted to execute certain task at a certain, let's say, a delay. Let's say the previous task is run, and then it doesn't want to run that particular at the immediate of that the previous task has been executed. You want some sleeping time, right? So you can do that, using the fixed delay. So there will be a delay of one task, and then the next task will be started at that particular time, right? Then we have cron job expression. So this is used to specify your complex schedule. So you can schedule certain specific days, week, year, month, and then also specifically hours, minutes, and seconds, right? So at the very complex and the minute level, you can define those. Now there is an initial delay as well, which will uh, actually, at the first execution, at what delay it should be executed, right? So as the application gets started, at what time that particular thing should be executed. So that is what we can define. So let's look at the example. So this is like, if you see at the very first example, it's a fixed rate. So at every 5 seconds, this will be executed. Now, if you see at the rate scheduled, and then if you see under that, there is an attribute called fixed rate. Okay. So that is has to be executed. Secondly, if you see fixed delay, then there is if you see this way, this will be executed after a delay of the previous task has been executed. After that, the 5 second, this task will be executed. Okay. Then comes the cron job, which is executed at certain time. So if you see this particular task is scheduled to be executed at the 2 a.m. Now, if you can change this particular configuration and you add your specific timings, but this is something what we have to make use of this cron job. Now here, if you see, I've given you a breakdown of like what exactly when you mention that in the cron job, right? So what exactly it denotes, like first is seconds, minutes, hours, days, a month, and then days of the week, and then the year, right? That's the indication, like we want to do schedule at certain time, right? This will be helpful for you. Now, apart from what we have discussed, like at a fixed rate, then we can schedule and run it, right? Let's say you wanted to run it in a multi-threaded environment, right? So whatever been executing so far, what we have discussed, right, that will be only executed on a single threaded. But if you want your task, or if you are running multiple tasks, or you want to run very long task, right? So you can configure the thread pools, right, where you can run them concurrently, okay, and you can customize it. So there has to be a task scheduler which has to be defined. Okay. Under that, you can define your pool size of, let's say, 10 or whatever number of threads you want to be executed. And then you can give the name of it, right? And then it will be executed along. I mean, now it will change to a multi-threading environment and it will be executed concurrently to previously what it was executing on a single thread basis, right? So that's the advantage of making use of your own core of your machines and then enabling your task to be run at a certain scale, right? Now, now if you see here, like this is the same example what we have already discussed. So these are the just timing changes and the rate changes over here, right? Uh, So the points to be remember when you are dealing with scheduler, right? So that's one thing is that if you're not defining any thread scheduler and you're not defining any thread pools, right? It will be executed on a single thread basis, okay, right? Secondly, if you are scheduling a task which are a heavy involvement or like let's say some IO operations, ensure you are using your thread pools in optimize and also it is an asynchronous execution, right? So it will not create problem for your application, right? And at the rate schedule, which is used in the context of this particular Spring Boot application, so it gives you the benefit of making use of the Spring Lifecycle and the dependency injection, right? So these are the points to be remembered. I hope you got the theoretical part. Now let's jump into the practical things. You have to first visit the Spring website, that is starter initializer, Spring starter initializer, right? So you have to visit this particular site. Then you have to select your kind of project it is a Maven based. So currently I'm looking out for a Maven based project. Then I'm totally working on Java, so that's the reason I've choose the language as Java. Always when it comes to the version of Spring Boot, right? Make sure you are selecting the version which is not snapshot or M1, right? So which are not beta kind of alpha kind of way. So always select the version which is not apart from the snapshot and the M1, right? So which will give you tested and completed. So there will be no testing being happening on that, right? So that's a concrete version which you have to take care of. So at the current moment, the version is 3.4.2. I will change this particular group to name to something else like Conquer, and then I will create the artifact with scheduler as a name. The packaging I wanted to go with the jar, and then I want to select 21. As of now, I'm going to select 21. There will be no much difference when you're selecting 23, but as of now, my machine has got 21. So I'm going to do that. And then I can add a dependency over here. Uh, After this, I'm going to generate this, right? Once I download this particular project, I'm going to go to my IntelliJ ID. I'm going to extract that particular file, and then I'm going to open this particular project over here. So under this particular file, you go to the open section, you will be able to select that, and then you will be able to open this. Now under this, if you have to go to the main Java location, now here what you have to do is that there is a main application over here. If you see here, so here you have to annotate it with the @ So here if you see already there is an scheduling, Spring Boot application is defined. Now here actually you have to write enable scheduling. So as we already discussed, this is the first thing what we have to do, that you have to enable the scheduling on this particular application when it is getting started, right? Second, we are going to create a class, which is, let's say I'm going to name it as scheduler class. Okay. So make sure you create this particular class and you annotate it with the @component. Okay. So under this you are going to write your logic of that particular application, what the task you are going to execute. Okay. So the very first thing what I mentioned here is that you have to first create a method over here. Okay. So let's say I'm just creating a task scheduled. Okay. So I'm creating this particular method. Okay. Now you remember like what we have told, like we have to annotate this particular method with the @schedule. Okay. So here, if you see, we have to annotate with that particular schedule. Okay. So that's the very first thing what we have to do. Now, we discussed about the attributes, which is fixed rate. Okay. So let's say you wanted to trigger this particular task at every, let's say 2 seconds, right? So what you have to do is that you have to write 2000 seconds over here. I am going to print something as an just a normal, task executed on interval. Okay. So now what happened is here that I have actually scheduled this particular method. I mean, after enabling my application, I have scheduled this particular task to be executed at the every interval of 2 seconds. Okay, and you'll every time it will print at the interval of 2 seconds, right? Now, what you have to do is that you have to go here. Sometime what happens, like the server ports are locked up, so you have to make changes to enable it, right? So this is not mandatory for everybody, but yeah, in my machine sometimes it creates a problem, so I am just trying to change it. After this, what you have to do is that you have to run your application. So go to your Spring Boot scheduler application, right? And then you basically run this particular application. Okay. Now, if you see here, this particular task is executing at every interval of 2 seconds. If you see here, right? So that's the advantage of using this particular, so that whatever task you want to execute at a certain interval, right? So here actually I mentioned 2 seconds. Now at the practical real case scenario, you might be running that at the interval of 5 minutes, or let's say at the let's say you wanted to execute certain scripts, right, at a certain interval or the morning or at the end of the day, you can make use of it. Okay. Now I'll stop this particular thing, and then what I will do is that I will go back to this particular thing, and let's try it out the another variation what we discussed about. So what we another discussed about is that fixed delay, right? So this will let's say at the fixed delay of 2 seconds, and then we have the initial delay, let's say 5,000 seconds. Okay. Now let's run this, and then we'll discuss like what's the difference with the previous execution, right? See here. Let me make this a little bit. Now if you see here, let's wait for the 5 second. Okay. Now you see at the very 5 second interval, this particular thing is executed, and after that, at the fixed interval or the fixed delay, there is a 2 second delay to that executing, right? So this is going to execute, right? So that's the benefit of using this. Now let's look at the third variation what we discussed about. So let's look at the let's make let me stop it. So here I will just make this as an cron. So we already discussed about the cron, uh, right? So here in the double quotes we have to define. Let's say now the timing is somewhere around uh, 0, then star, then the timing right now it is 16, 30. So I will just mention as 16, okay, and then for the rest of the things I will just mention as a right. So as the current time is 16, so I'm trying to run this at the particular interval of 16, so which will run between 16 start and then the 16:59. Until that, in this particular task it is going to execute. Okay. So let's again run this. Okay. Now if you see here, this should be executing in that particular timing, that is now 16, right? So it is going to be executed. Let's wait. Yeah, now if you see here, this particular task is executed. Now if you look at this particular 16, it is between that particular 16 and 15, 17 related time, right? So it is executed between that. So let's say you wanted to execute certain task which is between this particular timing, right? You can do that. Okay. I hope this particular video was helpful to you, and also you got to know about, like, how you can schedule your task, right, in Spring Boot application. So this video was helpful. Okay. Thank you for watching. Hope this video was helpful to you. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, and also share it with the needy people who are looking out for videos of such, and then also preparing them for their next upcoming interview.